You'll love this.
Hello and welcome to the Good Old Days, our program focusing on the history of Raynham and also the fact that what's happening today is tomorrow's history. I'm Pat Riley and our host is retired Selectman Don McKinnon, and we have a very special guest today. Mr. McKinnon, do you want to introduce our
Angelo
guest?
D'Amelia is from Bridgewater. He has been a representative, and I'll go back historically myself. My first term, most people hardly talked to me. They all thought I was a mistake, which was easy for them based on my campaign. But then in the second term, people began to treat me a little bit different. It's like, oh. And I'm wondering, Angelo, how does your work effort change from when you are still self-employed, but when you were self-employed to all of a sudden, a given day, 2.5 years ago, you were a rep, from then on up to now? How has your work day and your quality of what you do happened in the last 2.5 years? Because now you're no longer the rookie. You're established.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you both for having me here today.
You're welcome.
But, well, people, I've been fortunate. I think I have a great district. Having the 8th Plymouth district, having both Bridgewater and Raynham, I'm blessed and I'm fortunate. But people pretty much treat me the same. And as far as the way things have changed, obviously I don't put the same amount of time into my businesses that I had in the past.
Did you have to bring more people on?
No, my brother is heavily involved. He's a partner, so he really has taken the reins.
He steps it up a little bit.
He's always stepped it up. So obviously this is a full-time job for me, being the rep.
Sure.
But people treat me pretty much the same, even though I'm not, like you said, a rookie
Well, you'll be
anymore.
treated the same, but you have a different, when you get up in the morning now, do you go into Boston or do you go to your regular job for an hour or two to get things rolling? And is that how your work
our
day goes?
district office is in one of my offices in Bridgewater, so
Okay.
I tend to go there in the morning.
Okay.
But depending on what we have scheduled, whether it's committee hearings or a formal session, or sometimes I'll be covering informal session, I'll go to Boston depending on what my schedule dictates. For instance, we're getting into the FY15 budget cycle here shortly.
Right.
And as a member of Ways and Means, I'll be traveling all over the Commonwealth to go to the different hearings as soon as the schedule's set.
I think the Ways and Means they offered that to the dean one time, chairman of Ways and Means, and he didn't take it because he said, that's a full-time job.
There's a lot of work.
Ways and Means.
Absolutely.
People, you say it, okay, it rolls off the tongue, but when you actually do it.
Well, the staff that the chairman has is exceptional. I mean, they do a tremendous amount of work. I feel honored to be part of that committee. It's an important
That's a great committee to get on.
It certainly is, and we can help out in a lot of different ways for things locally here,
Right.
whether it be for the schools and whatnot. But the staffers, the people involved, whether it's in the private sector, in a company, or government, it's a lot of times the people behind the scenes that are doing a lot of the work, and they have an exceptional staff.
For anybody that might not know Ways and Means, that's your money issues.
Yeah, anything that has a financial component to it.
It's like our finance committee.
Right.
Right.
Which is significant.
Absolutely.
Right. Different bills can be assigned to different committees, but anything that has a financial component will ultimately be referred back to Ways and Means and go through that committee.
Did you want to be on that committee? I mean, because you got on that right from the beginning, and I would assume it's not easy. It is one of the most important committees.
Well, I was fortunate as a freshman legislator. I did request it. I just thought that, there's a lot of responsibility goes along with that, but it would help me in my learning curve.
Sure.
So, and it has, and I'm fortunate to be on it. I'm on community development and small business. This year I was placed on higher ed as well. So all the committees I'm on, I'm really fortunate to have the assignments I have.
But that's why you're so busy, too, to be on those important committees.
Well, as I've been in the private sector for a long time, and I like to be busy. I've always enjoyed work.
Very good.
The higher education, I've noticed recently, 2 institutions. One is Bridgewater University and the other one is community colleges. Does that budget item come through you, or is that something that's on automatic, the amount of money they have to spend? Because suddenly community, by the way, that's very nice ads. Both of them are very, very professionally done, which is the way, if you're going to do it, that's the way to do it.
I don't think anything's automatic. I mean, there's a certain requirement they have to run their operations, and I think we're trying to encourage in give a higher profile to our community colleges, because students today, you know, with the cost of going to college
Yeah.
and getting an education today being so great, a lot of times if you could start out at a community college with a more affordable type tuition, I think in the long run it'll help those students.
It's amazing. I know people who have gone 2 years to community, transfer into a Bridgewater or other schools about, get their 4-year degree. They've got their college diploma, and they got it probably at, you know, half the price of what it might have been if they went to no disrespect to the 4-year colleges,
No.
but it's expensive 4-year colleges.
In this day and age, I think you're going to see more and more of that, and I think that's why you're seeing a little bit more advertising. I think we want to encourage that to these kids today, going out looking to get their education, if they can get a lot of their electives or certain classes out of the way at the community college level that provide a great education.
Right.
It just makes
But
sense.
does that come through your committee or just?
All budget items,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
you know, those community college budgets and state university budget items, everything will be coming through.
Because I noticed even University of Mass Amherst advertises. Some of these schools, you know, there's a waiting list. You wonder, why are they advertising where there's a waiting list? But I suppose that's part of it. As a matter of fact, University of Mass Lowell, I think in hockey, is one of the top 15 or so schools in the country or something. Some of their sports are really, the one thing I disagreed with University of Mass Amherst, I believe they tried to get into Division I football, which was cruel because they were destroyed. But so sometimes people reach a little too far. But
Well, that's good. I'm glad we're heading towards sports. I thought that's why you guys invited me down
Yeah.
today. I thought we were going to talk. I thought
we
this
know
was a
you
sports
know
show.
sports. We know you know sports.
Speaking of that, and growing up, you grew up in Bridgewater, attended the Bridgewater schools, graduated from Bridgewater Raynham.
BR alum.
So what was it like then to go on to be state representative for Bridgewater and Raynham?
It really is something. I think I've told you this before. I've never had any political aspirations, and it's you know, been a chapter in my life that I've really enjoyed to this point. But going back to BR and talking to students on time and again, it has been really, really wonderful. You walk in and see how the school has moved forward with a new, you know, building, obviously, and attending some of the sporting events and seeing the kids take advantage of what we provide for them. It's been really great. So I know it sounds corny, but I always come back to the fact I feel blessed to have the district I have and come from the community I come from.
Bridgewater's changed, both communities have changed a lot since you were growing up, obviously.
Yeah, you know, they have. Both Raynham and Bridgewater have grown. Bridgewater's grown quite a bit. You know, the university itself over the last decade has grown tremendously. But I don't know. At the end of the day, maybe, you know, there are traffic issues in Bridgewater when the school's in session and whatnot. But overall, I find that, you know, it's still, the people are still the same people. You know, there's just more of us.
Definitely. But they both seem to be able to kind of keep that small town flavor, even though, as Don, you mentioned earlier, the population's growing.
Well, 28,000, I think that's about it.
Yeah, that's
Angelo
about-
now,
that's about
Raynham's
it.
13. And so Raynham, when I started, was in around 5 or 6. It's doubled.
You know, what's interesting about Bridgewater, too, when you factor in the number of students that are there on campus, you know, both the commuters and whatnot. So you have 28,000, and then there's probably close to 12,000 or so, give or take, at the university. But I don't know. I still think we have a nice small town feel here in Raynham and in Bridgewater.
We're far enough south so we keep to maintain the small school and the small town because we're out of the mainstream. The good news and the bad news is we're out of the mainstream because sometimes Boston forgets we're here. But
Yeah, it seems like the inner cities require a lot of attention. You know, the larger cities, Boston and, you know, Worcester and the Springfields. But hey, we're up there fighting for well,
not
me.
your call, but we noticed it's in Taunton, the feathers were a little bit ruffled because the governor's new budget doesn't include any money for the Taunton State Hospital. And,
Well, I
this
mean-
is the second, you know, was Lakeville and now Taunton, and
Well,
we feel like Rodney Dangerfield in a way, but that's not your call.
Well, we're going to look at that. I mean, I fought for more funding for Taunton State Hospital in the last budget. And, you know, House 1 came out, now House 2, the governor's budget. You know, this won't be what we end up with. You know, the House has to, you know, do its thing, and the Senate will provide their budget, and we'll come to some sort of agreement. So what you see now, isn't going to be what you see as the final result of the F-15.
It's funny you say it because I hate to say it, I used to disregard the governor's budget. In all the years I worked, I paid no attention to it. And everybody would get all excited. I said, it isn't going to be what you're going to see. It doesn't mean it's bad. It just means nobody who knows what they're doing pays any attention to it.
I don't want to say I disregard it and I don't pay attention
No,
to it.
no, no, you don't. Oh,
I look
no,
at it.
a very serious
But
person.
I'm looking forward to the House's version of the budget, and we'll see where we end up.
But I think the state, you know the thing that bothers me, it isn't particularly even the state hospital in my world. It's the fact that parents, families, relatives visit those hospitals, and they're from down the Cape and things of this nature, whereas they're moving things to Worcester. Well, if you come from Provincetown and you're going to visit Worcester, well, you might as well take a hotel room.
Sure.
Well, that's why, you say Taunton State Hospital, but it serves our region. So it's the Cape, it's Raynham, it's Taunton, but it's this South Shore area, this region. So it's something we're going to have to take a look at. I mean, it's unfortunate that we've lost the number of beds we've lost, but although it's not included in the governor's budget to date, that's probably not where it's going to end up.
What bothers me is that's the way he's leaving us, though. In other words, now he's in his twilight. He's coming to an end. It's sad that he ends with that sort of feeling from the southern part of the state.
Well, everybody's, I guess, entitled to have their priorities.
Well,
it's just his priorities are different
He lives
than
on
mine.
the New York line. What do you want from me?
I
You said that, no?
I have
He
to
plays
ask
tennis, and
Angelo,
when the ball goes out, he ends in New York.
how is education going to fare in the budget? Any idea?
I told
I'm
you,
glad you
watch
brought
out
that
for
up.
Pat.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. I mean,
Yeah, I sure you are.
I think that we definitely, I'm looking to make sure that we get a sufficient amount of Chapter 70 money for Bridgewater and Raynham. Right now, again, the budget, I haven't gone through the entire budget, but I think unrestricted local aid is flat in the governor's proposal, and he's bumped it up somewhat on Chapter 70. But we need to as the revenues increase, we're looking at a 4.9% increase in the anticipated revenues. We have to start bringing back some of that local aid. We're not at where we need to be as far as recovering from the downturn in the economy. I'd like to see the numbers head back towards what we were receiving in '09.
Very good. So you enjoy being state representative?
I really do. I enjoy it, and I guess that's why I'm going to be running again. So if I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't run again. But
That's right.
it's been interesting. It really has. And one of the things, I obviously kept an open mind going in, but one of the things I've really enjoyed is the opportunity to work with my constituents and do the constituent service part. I've learned a tremendous amount. I got a great person working with me, Kristen Taylor. I know you've met Kristen, and she's done a tremendous job. When people call, she knows where to go and how to maneuver her way around the building. When I first got elected back in 2010, it was like a roller coaster ride there in the early part of it. One of the first calls I made was to one of my colleagues, Vinny DiMacedo from Plymouth. The very night when the results came out, I called him up right away.
Now what do I do?
Oh, well, exactly. I called him. Well, Vin, we won, but and he supported me. He's a great friend. But I says, you're going to have to find me a great aide, and he says, don't worry about that. So.
Oh, you didn't know the aid?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
I started going up there right away, at least once or twice a week, and I started. I put a list together of people that were going to be available, and Kristen was pretty much the cream of the crop. She was at the top of my list, but I not only met with other senators and representatives who got their opinion on who was going to be available and who I should really look to interview, but I talked to the other aides around the building, and they all came back with her, but they said don't plan on getting her because she's been in the building for a number of years and she's experienced and she's used to a nice office, so she's probably not going to go with a freshman rep. So
Yeah,
what I lacked in political savvy, I think I made up for with a little business savvy, and I conned her into coming with me. So and she's still with me. But the
now is she
constituent
in your
service,
office in Bridgewater or is she in Boston?
the way we set it up is I want to have coverage in Boston every day,
Yes.
and I don't travel to the city every day, so I'd like to stay in the district as much as possible. Obviously, if I have committee hearings or a session, I'm always in Boston. But Kristen's in Boston every day. I stay back in the district, other than when I have session and whatnot. And you know, it's worked well. So when people were accessible, and when people call, she's done a tremendous job. We're really lucky to have Bridgewater and Raynham. Are lucky to have that girl working with us.
Very good.
It's interesting what happens, though. David Flynn had an aide that was second to none. And I often wondered what was going to, I forget his name naturally. Names are not easy for me.
I'm
When
not-
you get to a certain age.
I'm not good with names either. I had to look your name up before I came.
DL. Middle name Leo. Long story. But I won't bore, yes, I will bore you.
Oh, keep going. This is great.
But I wonder what happens to these, and what you're saying is probably this young lady, the rep didn't run again or something of this nature,
Actually-
and so she became available.
Right. Well, what happened was she worked for Karen Polito, who ran, I believe, for
she's running, is she?
auditor.
Is she running for lieutenant governor
Yes.
this time?
Yes, she
Oh,
is.
okay. Oh,
But-
is
so
that
she's
down
been
the
up-
Cape?
She's from the Shrewsbury area.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right.
She's out in the central Mass.
Yeah.
That part.
Okay.
But she was
all
not
right.
successful in that bid, so you know, her staff came available, and that's how I found out.
Well, that's something like the dean, you know. I mean, I'm sure Democrats were vying for whoever that gentleman, I don't remember what his name was, but he was with them for years, and he was very, very good. And the poor dean, though, he backed the wrong guy. You know, not that that would happen to somebody that's a Republican. They always back the right people. But this guy, the dean backed a guy, and being the dean, he had given the man his word, so he stayed with him, even though he knew he wasn't going
You're
to.
talking about the speaker in the
Yes,
speaker fight, or
yes,
the speaker
and he
election.
backed the wrong guy.
We
So
can
all of
only
a sudden
hope
he
that I
ended
have
up-
that opportunity to be on the right side of that someday.
It's called the law of averages, Angelo.
Well, you know, hopefully in my lifetime.
But how has it been as a Republican in a Democratic-controlled House?
I've been well received up there. I go up there, and I'm respectful to everybody. I treat everybody the way I want to be treated. I don't, I'm proud to be a Republican. But I'm not a partisan guy. First and foremost, everybody knows with me that I got to do what's best for Bridgewater and Raynham.
And you do your homework, so they respect that.
Well, that's it. And I learned pretty early on that to get anything done and move forward up there, you're going to have to work with everybody. So anybody that's willing to work with me, I'm open to that. And again, I've been well received. I have the opportunity to go and sit with the speaker, and being on Ways and Means, I get access to the chairman of Ways and Means, and the minority leader's been tremendous. His office and his staff. It's pretty simple. You just treat people the way you want to be treated. We can agree to disagree on certain items or issues, but once we have the debate, we battle it out and do what we do. You move on, and win or lose.
Too bad Washington, D.C. didn't operate a little bit more
Well,
like that.
they really need to start looking at that, because we can't continue to go down the path we're going down in this country. There's a lot of serious issues we have to deal with. The debt for one. There's a lot of things that business that they have to attend to, and the partisan stuff has to be put aside, in my humble opinion.
Very good.
I think the difference between federal and state is the federal can print the money, whereas the state has to balance their budget.
You can print money to a degree, but eventually you devalue the dollar to the point where
think
it's
they've
going to
done
be. Well,
You don't think China's getting the dollar that you and I made 10 years ago?
yeah.
So
I don't think any of us are.
that's what I didn't want to say.
What's
that.
the most challenging part of the job? Obviously, working with constituents is the part you really enjoy. What do you find most challenging or a little bit frustrating at times?
I don't want to say that anything's really frustrating for me. The legalese behind some of it, but we're fortunate. I have House counsel that I can go to if I have a piece of legislation. I'm not one that's going to go out and write a ton of legislation. There's thousands and thousands of bills to consider, every year or every session. So that's challenging, but I've been able to deal with that pretty easily, because you can rely on the staff and House legal counsel. So when we have something we want to draft, say like mosquito control, looking for more funding, I've put some legislation in to increase the funding for both Bristol and Plymouth County mosquito projects. There's been a learning curve to that. But again, with Kristen being there and having access to House counsel and the staff, that's probably been the most challenging thing for me personally. But I got it down pretty good now.
Very good.
I think we found that out with Alan Chalker when he beat me about 100 years ago, because he was the aide to Peter Flynn. and the aides know who to go, what to do, and so they become, that aide becomes a very valuable person.
That's it. They're very valuable, and like I said, what I lack in political experience, I like to think that I make up for in a little bit of business savvy. So it's about people. It's about
Either
who you,
street smarts or management.
right. It's who you have around you. You know, a lot of times the credit will go to, you know, the elected official, but I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of people up there that are behind moving things forward, and there's a lot of staffers that help run different committees. So, you know, I can't sit here and take credit for a lot of things. It's just about putting good people around you, and I've done that in my private life. You know, in my businesses, I've surrounded myself with hardworking, intelligent, quality people, and I've tried to do the same thing, you know, with my political
Does your
career.
business keep you pretty much in Bridgewater, or do you?
No, I mean, we travel. I have a construction business, and I have a little bit of real estate. You know, we have an old mill building. But, you know, we do whatever we have to do.
Right.
And
Go where you have to
go
go,
where the
yeah.
work is. You know, we did
Yeah.
a lot of public work in the past, which we don't do any longer. But we did a lot of school work. I built a lot of schools and town halls and whatnot. So, but my brothers have really stepped up and taken
good.
the helm. Yeah, no, I'm lucky. I got
Yeah.
a great family.
Yeah.
Now, looking back over the time you've been state representative so far, what are some of the things that you're most proud of? Obviously, here in Raynham, you helped us with the schools with the roof projects. That we got grant funding for
Yeah.
that, which has been really huge.
Yeah, I'm just proud of the fact that I'm in this position and I'm able to help a little bit. Some of the funding with that, some of the funding for you know, when these issues pop up, you know, the mosquito issue,
Yes.
the triple E issue is incredibly important issue for our area. We were really fortunate last year not to have it be as bad as it's been in the past. But yeah, I guess I'm proud of the whole thing. I'm proud of being up there. I'm proud of working hard and representing this district, and I'm proud of my 100% voting record. I go up there and I do the best I can every day. I'm proud of that.
Very good.
Does that pose a problem, 100%? I mean, 100% is difficult to do anything. But do you find yourself being stretched trying to make that attendance, or is that just
It's something I'm conscious
pieces
of.
falling
No, I'm conscious of
Yeah,
it. I mean,
yeah.
it's my top priority. You know,
to be there?
I
Sure.
told people that I was going to work hard for them, and I was
Right.
going to be there, and that's how you can prove it to someone. And I'm not going to say there's never going to be an instance where something could come up that I
That's
might
what
miss a
of
vote
course,
or something.
of course.
Because it happens, you know, it does happen. But you know, from right now, I've been fortunate. You know, I go there, and when I'm in session, I tend to not leave the chamber. I want to sit there and make sure that I'm listening and partaking in the discussion.
I thank you, Angelo. You did meet with Miss Molly Karen.
Yeah, you're a lucky man. She's a great girl.
She was on two weeks ago with Pat and I.
Oh, you didn't make me follow Molly, did you?
Well, you were supposed to go on before her.
That's a
You-
tough act to follow. That's
you
not
had a
really.
head go.
No, I was in
You were in
Boston.
session.
I was in session that
I know,
day.
but I'm
so-
saying you were originally billed before her, because what we were doing is taking the elders in the beginning, and then we were going to finish off with the good old days. Those were the good old days. So you're part of those, and then the other part of the show is these are the good old days. So you were both.
Well, I'm
past
sure you
and
got a
present.
great editing team that can make everything work.
Sure. Yeah, wake them up in that control room, whatever you do. But she thanks you very much because you met with her, and she was you talk about meeting with the students. She was a senior, as did Pat, helped Molly out too, getting her on a program. So they've opened doors, you've opened doors, and I thank you for that. Is that legislation
I think
in the works at this, you know?
I
it's-
think you're going to see it got voted out of committee
Right.
favorably.
Right.
But I think it's a concussion bill, and I want to give Molly a tremendous amount of credit. She came up with the idea, and obviously through her life experience. She contacted our office, and again, Kristen helped with some of the language. It helped draft the bill, and then we put it forward, and Senator Pacheco submitted a version on the Senate side, and we had a public hearing on it, and Molly came in and did it. You were there.
Sure.
You did a tremendous job at the
Great job.
public hearing.
As
But-
did you.
I think what you're going to see is a committee bill that's going to come out that's going to incorporate a lot of these different concussion bills, and I think you'll see that move forward. But I give her, she's quite an impressive young lady.
Yes, thank you very much. And I think the concussion is, it's time.
No,
The biggest surprise was the New England Patriots endorsing that bill, because the National Football League is very cautious on what they say and how they say it. But I saw that one came out on a concussion that had to do with coaches and all of the people dealing with the athletics to attend, you might say, classes or something. It had been in effect for like over 10 years, but they were including private schools, and what is the other one, Pat, that we don't?
Charter schools?
Charter schools. I have trouble saying that word. And the reason is, charter schools are paid for by the taxpayer. Where do they come under the private school umbrella? I take offense to that, because they should come under the public school, because we taxpayers pay for them. But somehow or other, somebody back in some state education department separated them from the public schools, which I find offensive, but nothing a little Irishman can do when he's a has-been.
Well, you know what? You gotta voice your opinion every once in a while.
Go in there,
You
go in there.
gotta come out of that shell you're in.
holler
every
at-
once in a
It is in
while.
McKinney, right?
Well, stop the snow and I'll be in.
No, but I'm hoping we're gonna see something like it's probably a consensus committee bill that's
Right.
gonna include the bill that we put in from on.
Right, thank you very much for
You're
help.
more
I
than welcome.
appreciate it.
It's been
Yeah.
a great.
And that's basically what people don't see. They don't know what's going on in there between you and other department heads who are meeting on a regular basis with them, and it comes to pass.
Well, like I said, it's been
As you
been
said, a
great.
lot of behind-the-scenes work goes into whatever takes place.
Yep.
I often thought someday if we get a real lull, I'll bring up some of the issues, and the issues is crossing the Ts and dotting the Is, and that's where the difference comes, you know.
Absolutely. So you're going to spend a lot of time on the budget, I'm sure. That's any possibility that communities will find out before too long? I know that's always an issue, is finding out so late, and you have to set your budgets and everything. School department, that's an issue.
We've put amendments in and tried to put legislation in where we require the state to divulge that information to the communities in a more timely fashion. For some reason, it got voted down quite often. So
Sure.
you know, the few times that I've
Can
been able
only
to.
hope.
But when I find out something, I'll give you a call.
Thank you.
I always look for these little things, but I was very surprised when they taxed computers or something, and then they had to take it back. What was that one?
Well,
Where
the IT tax. I mean,
Yeah.
this last time out, I voted against the budget because I didn't feel that we needed to
it didn't
increase.
seem practical.
It just, we didn't have to raise taxes $500 million last time out. You know, and it came out that we were 631 or thereabouts $1 million above benchmark. So we received the revenues plus the 630 or thereabouts on what we anticipated. So it didn't make sense for me to raise taxes. Now, obviously, the majority of my colleagues saw things differently, so I lost that vote, and we ended up raising, you know.
But then they rescinded it, didn't they?
Right. Well, as part of that 500
Did you
million.
say I told you so?
You tried.
No, I didn't. Well,
I was just asking.
I
mean to-
didn't say I told you so, but it's proven
you
out.
told them
It's
so.
proven out that
Yeah.
we didn't have to raise the taxes
Yeah.
on the hardworking taxpayers. So we ended up going back and repealing that IT portion, which was, I think, was 160 some odd million dollars. And you know, we've been able to sustain, and it just.
I even feel sorry for the smokers. I at one time was a smoker. It is an addiction, and I feel sorry for the fact that anytime there's problems, they seem to go to some guy's addiction.
Well, that's an easy thing to target, you know.
I know it
I'm
is.
not a smoker, and
No,
I
no, I
don't
know.
condone smoking, and I don't think it makes sense.
No.
But you know,
But-
to try to fund things, you know, on a specific item doesn't make sense either.
Absolutely.
You have to do a better job overall
Yeah.
of managing the revenues you had. Like, I voted against this last budget due to the fact they raised taxes $500 million, and in turn we ended up taking that IT portion out. We didn't have to do it, so. We'll see how this cycle turns out. I'm hoping that they're not going to be looking for more revenues from
Well,
the
the
people
word's
now.
coming back to the town, and I'll say our town, that you're a hard worker, and that's very important. That's how you did well the last time. And
Well, I have to say, you know, I'll give a big thanks.
Raynham really thanked you.
Raynham did it for me, and you know, I thank them, and I'll continue to work hard for them.
We appreciate it,
Thank
and
you.
believe it or not, we are just about out of time. Quickly, do you want to give us your office number if anybody out there wants to contact you for some of those constituent services?
I actually have a new office number. It's 617-722-2488. So I'm in office 548, 617-722-2488.
Very good. Thank you very much for being
Bigger
with
office,
us.
I'm sure.
Our guest today, State Representative
Thank you
Angelo
very much,
D'Amelia.
Angelo.
Thank
I
you
appreciate
so
it.
much.
Thanks
I appreciate it.
Appreciate
And
it.
we want to thank all of you for being with us as well. We'll see you here on our next episode of The Good Old Days.
See that to the
Thank
one,
you.
Angelo? See how
you.
Pat does it? That's why she is where she is.
She's the best.